high places. But when King Jehoiakim took over, he restored the worship of Baal. He restored the idolatry in the high places. He maintained those priests who were bad, priests who could not guide the Israelites into worship of the only true God. He maintained those prophets who were prophesying wrong things. And there was a lot of evil in Jerusalem. This was a tribe that God had chosen. But this was a tribe that had gone astray. They were lost within. They were lost within because they were still living in Jerusalem, in Judea, and they would go to worship in the temple that God had chosen as a place of worship. And we see that they had been lost because they forgot their God and went and worshipped other gods. They were lost within. So God sent Jeremiah with a message. And this message, he was to preach it to the people. We look at the place where he was required to preach. He was given an order to go and give a message, and he was to deliver this message to the Israelites as they were entering the temple. The temple, the biggest gate of the entering into the courts of the temple was facing east. And the Israelites, especially the males in Israel, they were required to go to Jerusalem 3 times in a year during there were festivals that had to take place in Jerusalem 3 times a year, and they were required to go there. So I'm imagining that Jeremiah was at the gate during one of those times that they had been required to go to Jerusalem. When they were required to go to Jerusalem, God required them also not to go empty-handed. That means whenever they went to the temple, they would sacrifice, and they would worship God, and they would adore him. So we are looking at Jeremiah standing at the gates of the temple and preaching the word that God had sent him to preach or to tell the people. And we know that most of the churches, apart from the Presbyterian church and the mainstream churches, most of these Pentecostal churches, it belongs to the priest or the pastor or the bishop of that church. And even in the Presbyterian church, we know that the pulpit belongs to the reverend. Only that, because he cannot be at different places at one time, he delegates the duty of preaching. So, as Jeremiah was preaching at the gate, he had taken over the place of the priest. And tunajua, the priests who are Pharisees, they guarded their presnit, or the places where they had the honor of preaching very much. And therefore it was like alikuwa anawachokoza, but he had been sent. He had been sent to the men of Judah. He had been sent because God had watched over what had been going on, and he was not happy with what was going on. During this time, it was a time when the Babylonians were preparing to come and capture them. But they were looking at the temple, and they were declaring that as long as the temple is there, as long as we are going to worship, as long as we are going to sacrifice, as long as we are going to adore God there, nothing can happen to us. So their safety, they looked at the temple as their safety. Lakini Mungu akawaangalia akaona he needed them to reform. According to the word that Jeremiah was sent to give them, it says that this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, say: reform your ways and your action, and I will let you live in this place. Reform your ways and your action, and I will let you live in this way. But then they were talking about the temple. This is the temple of the Lord. The temple of the Lord. The temple of the Lord. So walikuwa nasisitiza ati The temple, the temple, the temple. That meant as long as the temple of the Lord was there, that was their security. They had confidence that nothing could happen to the temple. But God was telling them to reform. What were they to reform about? They were to reform about on the oppression. God looked at them and saw how they were oppressing the alien, the fatherless, the widow. And God in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse 18 had told them that they were supposed to love them and take care of those three categories. The alien, the fatherless, and the widow. They were to take care of them. But when he looked at their lives, they were oppressing them. They were not, if for example, a widow would look for justice, pengine alikuwa amenyang'anywa mali yake, if he went to the judge and was looking for justice, those who were to judge were not, they were not giving them their rights. The fatherless, their things were being taken away. The alien, they were not regarded as people. And God saw that they were oppressing them. And he required them to reform their ways. Another thing is that God required them to reform from shedding innocent blood. They would oppress, they would kill, and God was not happy about that. And in the Bible, it tells us that those who have murdered, those who have shed blood, it pollutes a place. So whenever blood was shed, it polluted. And those who were murdering, they were still going to church to sacrifice, to worship, and to adore God. So they were polluting the temple. And then they were involved in idolatry. They were worshiping other God. And God had required them to only worship one God, but they had forgotten about that. So they would worship the other gods, and then when it was required of them to come to the temple, they would come and sacrifice to God and worship him. So God was not pleased with that. And therefore, he sent Jeremiah to tell them, unless you reform your ways and your action, they will not live in that place. But if they reform, they would continue living in that place. Upon reformation, God would cause them to dwell in Jerusalem, and the temple would remain in that place in Jerusalem, and also they would live in the land that God had given their forefathers. So why were they calling on the or why was their confidence on the temple? The temple, the temple. That phrase is written 3 times. The repetition. It expresses the intents of their confidence on the temple. And God cautioned them against their self-deceit, because though they worshipped, the 3 times of the repetition, the temple, the first one, they worshipped. The second one, they sacrificed. The third one, they adored in the temple court. So they thought that because of that privilege, that they had pride and confidence. And because of this, God was not happy. And therefore, he was going to allow the Babylonians to take over. As Christians, have we been doing the same? As Christians who are in the church, have we been oppressing those God has placed in our midst to help? The alien, the widow, the fatherless. Have we been taking care of them? And as children, we may ask ourselves, it is not referring to us, but when you are in school, are you oppressing those weak ones? The weak student in school, are you oppressing them? Unaweza kusema who just said shed blood. Are you murdering? The words that you speak, the word that you speak to people, is it hurting that loved one? If you are a husband, the word that you speak to your wife, negative words, do they kill her morale? Student, the words that you speak to your friends, do they hurt them? That is murder. You are shedding blood. Are you worshiping idols? are we worshiping idols? An idol is something that you esteem more highly than God. These days, we have our phones. We are always with our phones. Our phones have become our idols. Our cars have become our idols. Our homes have become our idols. Our wives, our children, our gadgets, those have become our idols. God is not pleased. We are in the midst of we are Christian, but we have looked at, worshipped other gods, and God today is calling us to reform in our ways and our actions. Apart from that, God was also not pleased, and they were calling this the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. But God asked them, has this house which bears my name become a den of robbers to you? Have I been but I have been watching, declares the Lord. Anawaambia, will you steal and murder and commit adultery and perjury, burn incense to Baal and follow other gods you have not known? As Christians, do we steal time that is meant for God? Do we commit adultery? Do we lie even when we know that whatever we are saying is not true? For example, when we are called to give witness, do we give something that is wrong when we are required to give the truth? Do we worship other gods? Have we made this house of God to be a house of thieves? When the temple was being built, it was being built for worship. And God said, whoever entered that temple, whatever he requested God to do, he would do. But now God is angry because by calling the house of the Lord and they are doing other things, it is as if they are also making God to be part of whatever they do. And this did not please God. God is holier is very holy, and he does not allow anything that is unholy to come near him. And when we do that, his wrath can be poured against us. Sometimes we make ourselves to be holier than thou, our attitude, and we look at others as if they are the ones who are sinners. But God is telling us, I'm watching you. I'm watching you. Is God watching you? Whatever you are doing, is God watching you? When you look at the second reading, we find the second son. Not the prodigal son, but the son who was left at home. In that community, there was a rule that if a son required to go to take his inheritance and move away from home, the one who would be left would be given everything that was left. And therefore, when this older brother sees his brother taking his inheritance, he goes and squanders it and then come back and is received with great joy. He becomes angry. He becomes angry. He is envious of the celebrations that were going on. He was discontent with what he had. He did not even think that the father had given him everything. He did not remember that the father had given him everything that he owned. But he was looking at the celebrations that were being given to the second son. So that is how we usually see others. When we look at our friends who God have blessed, we become dissatisfied. We become envious. And we ask God, God, I have been praying to you every day. I've woken at 3 to pray, and you have not blessed me with anything. And when we look at people, especially those who are newly converted to Christ, and God is blessing them, we become envious. We ask God, why aren't you blessing me? I have been faithful, oh Lord. I have not seen anything, you doing anything. But as the Father went out and pleaded with the Son, so that is how God comes to us and pleads with us, telling us, I've given you everything that you have. So when we look at our lives, what has God not given us? He has given us good health. He has given us homes where we live. He has given us loved ones. But when we look at others who have maybe God's grace and mercies have been upon them, we become envious. We become discontented with what we have. So today God is asking us, are we lost within? Remember, this is happening to us who are within the church. So are we lost within the church? Are we lost within our families? Are we lost within our friends? Are we lost? What sin is God admonishing us about today? Is it idolatry? Is it oppression? Is it shedding of blood? Is it adultery? What sin is God admonishing us today? When we come across strangers, how do we treat